Alright, hi, this is Normie-Cel, and this channel is a place to have intelligent conversations without falling into toxic or violent patterns. And today's topic is modern day eugenics. So I'll start with a brief history of what eugenics was and how it started, and then I'll get into why modern dating is a form of eugenics or artificial gene selection. So, the main idea is eugenics basically started back in the 1800s as understandings of genes and DNA were becoming more popular. So you had Watson and Crick discovering DNA. You had, in the past, you had Gregor Mendel and the peas. You had dog breeders and pigeon breeders and all kinds of other things like that. And so people were becoming aware that your genes had an effect on the kind of person you became. Your lineage matters, essentially, right? And this idea was popularized by a famous book in the USA, actually. So eugenics didn't start in Germany. It started in the USA, where there was a strong puritanical ideal of hard work and that sort of thing. So, yeah, eugenics starts here from a famous book called The Kallikak Family. And the book's main premise was this. There was a soldier during the Civil War who has an affair with a tavern woman, and then he goes home and marries his well-to-do woman, quote unquote. And so it follows the descendants from the Civil War soldier from both women, right? And so the children born from the tavern woman end up being alcoholics, drug users and all sorts of violent criminals. And then the ones born from the well-to-do Quaker family, from the well-to-do Quaker woman, end up being doctors, lawyers, and that sort of thing. And so this is how eugenics actually became really popular, because a lot of people, this book was a bestseller of its time. And people started saying, hey, we don't want a bunch of drug dealers and criminals in our society. We need to start selecting for good traits. And then Hitler eventually read The Kallikak Family, and he ended up using a lot of ideas from the American eugenics movement. So essentially, eugenics is the idea that you can select genetic traits and you go from there. I want to argue that modern dating is actually a form of eugenics. So think of the traits that people are selecting for, right? You have to be a certain height, a certain facial structure, etc., etc. If you don't meet these qualities, you are excluded from the genetic pool. So by definition, this is a form of eugenics. It might be soft eugenics, kind of subtle. No one's explicitly saying this race or that race or this person, that person. But there is a subtle pressure for better and better genes. But I don't want to say better and better genes, because that was one of the issues that Hitler had. He was getting very subjective with it and choosing certain genes and saying this is good, this is bad. So, let's say being a bad boy, right? Let's say that's one of the traits you're selecting for. So you say, hey, I want a partner who is very adventurous. They have a high degree of aggressiveness and a low amount of empathy, right? You start selecting for those traits. And then by definition, you're not selecting for something like empathy or kindness or stability. And then you go from there. So, yeah, all I wanted to do in this video was kind of recognize the idea that there is such a thing called eugenics in modern dating, of course.